Kenya's parliament has been officially opened following December's presidential election, which triggered more than 1,000 killings. President Mwai Kibaki said the power-sharing agreement brokered by Kofi Annan would lay what he called the foundations for peace. Lawmakers are expected to vote on the agreement next Tuesday, as Yvonne Ndege reports from Nairobi.
Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga arrived in parliament to start a process that will end in him becoming the country's new prime minister. President Mwai Kibaki choosing to relinquish some of his powers in the process. This is all thanks to the historic power-sharing deal put together by the former UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan. The two men are now being forced to work together to stop the violence that was threatening to pull Kenya apart.
The events of the last 2 months have offered us an opportunity to look inwards in order to fully comprehend the weaknesses and threats, as well as the strengths and opportunities we have as a nation. Indeed, Kenyans will always prefer peace over conflict, prosperity over desolation, unity over discord, and justice over injustice. This is why on February 28th, the year 2008, I and Honorable Raila Odinga accepted and signed the National Accord because our people had spoken clearly that they wanted one Kenya.
The new deal will give Raila Odinga the power to supervise the execution of government business. 2 new deputy prime ministers from each side will also be appointed. But will the coalition hold? It will be a delicate balancing act. As Kenya's MPs discuss the new power-sharing deal, the country's coalition could collapse if President Kibaki's MPs or those on Raila Odinga's side decide to pull out of the coalition, and that could mean fresh elections. But hundreds of thousands of Kenyans are still recovering from December's vote, if not living with the consequences. Take the 350,000 people stuck in camps for the displaced. Kenyan politicians are yet to strike a deal for these people, but they have promised an inquiry into what went wrong, which may be the start of these people being able to piece their lives back together. Yvonne Ndege, Al Jazeera, Nairobi, Kenya.
Palestinian fighters have released a video showing a roadside bomb blowing up an Israeli army vehicle which killed 1 soldier. The Public Resistance Committee claimed responsibility for the attack in southern Gaza. Now, the committee includes armed factions belonging to Hamas, Fatah and Islamic Jihad. The group was responsible for the capture of Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, who is still being held. And an Islamic Jihad fighter died in another Israeli airstrike in northern Gaza. The group says the attack happened after it carried out a cross-border rocket attack. Almost 130 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli attacks in Gaza in just over a week. And the humanitarian crisis there is at its worst in more than 40 years, says Amnesty International and other aid groups. Their new report shows that poverty levels are unprecedented, with 80% of families dependent on aid. Unemployment is nearing 50% and 80% of students fail their exams. Egyptian authorities have arrested 26 members of its largest opposition group, the Muslim Brotherhood. More than 600 members of the banned group have now been arrested during the past week in what they say is a government campaign to prevent them contesting local elections scheduled for next month. Now in Sri Lanka, a legislator backed by the Tamil Tigers has been killed by a roadside bomb. His driver also died. The blast coincided with a new report which says Sri Lanka has one of the world's worst records on human rights abuses. Sri Lanka's government says the report is exaggerated, but Human Rights Watch stands by its allegations.
We have 99 detailed cases, testimonies given to me and my colleagues of people who were disappeared in Sri Lanka, seen many of them last in the custody of the military or the police. The facts are there on paper. The problems are extensive, and to date the government has only denied the issue, has not done any serious investigations to make it stop.
There's been a small explosion in New York's famous Times Square, but the White House says it doesn't appear to be terrorism. The blast damaged a recruitment center for the U.S. military. U.S. Homeland Security and the FBI are investigating reports that a man on a bike threw a small explosive device at a police officer. Colombia's vice president says there's no risk of war with Venezuela or Ecuador, despite both countries massing troops along their borders. Both nations have deployed tanks and troops to the Colombian border, claiming it's a defensive move. The action follows a weekend cross-border raid by Colombia's military into Ecuador, in which a key rebel leader was killed. A fugitive arms dealer accused of fueling the war in Colombia and many other countries has been arrested in Thailand. Russia could now seek the extradition of Viktor Bout. The former Soviet Air Force officer is accused of violating UN arms embargoes and trafficking black market weapons. A book about his life was called The Merchant of Death, and a Hollywood movie about his life was called Lord of War. Well, another country...
After the end of the Cold War, there's a lot of extra weapons, especially of Soviet-Russian origin, available, and a lot of skilled mercenary fighters, including pilots and mechanics. And so they deliver not just simply small arms or just guns, they deliver MiG fighters, they deliver helicopter gunships together with mercenary pilots and mercenary mechanics, which have been used in wars in the Balkans, in Africa, in Asia. So recently there were spottings of Russian mercenary pilots flying Russian-made attack helicopters for the Ethiopian military and in action in Somalia against the Islamic rebels, which more or less puts them on the same side with the United States in that conflict, because this black arms trade creates very, very strange bedfellows in different kind of war zones, and sometimes it could be the Americans and, say, the Iranians and maybe even the Israelis on one side, and in the other conflict they'll be on supporting opposite sides, and this is very, of course, embarrassing, and Bout most likely knows a lot, really a lot about this trade, because he was delivering actually these weapons. And delivering there, it's like delivering pizza. It's real hot. I mean, this is a cash market. If you pay, you get your delivery in several days on the spot together with mercenaries, and you can go to war.
Another country which is awash with weapons is Afghanistan, but getting tribesmen to give up their prized possessions and their security in a lawless land is having little success, as Imran Khan reports.
In a land ravaged by 25 years of war, weapons are easy to come by. But disarming the former fighters is not so easy. The United Nations, through its International Security Assistance Force, is trying to disarm the Afghan population. They're backing an effort by troops like these Afghan National Army soldiers to take back arms caches. But it's an uphill task. The Afghan government is cautious because it doesn't want to be accused of disarming former jihadists, men who are respected for their fighting skills and bravery. However, they understand that it is important.
We have bandits in addition to some irresponsible people possessing weapons, and if we do not collect these weapons, we may face very serious repercussions.
The Disarmament of Illegal Organisations programme, as it's called, has been running for 3 years. So far, it's only managed to target a quarter of the Afghan areas it said it would. ISAF's strategy is to trade development aid with security, but that arms for peace swap is not being accepted by all. Some say that the weapons handover symbolises a weapons laydown. Many citizens think that possessing a weapon is still a security necessity. Take away the guns and you take away security. With fighting still going on in parts of the country and all-out war still fresh in many people's minds, total disarmament is a very long way off. This programme may be a small step in the right direction, but it's one the authorities are hoping is an important one. Imran Khan, Al Jazeera.
Afghanistan is also a major talking point for NATO foreign ministers meeting in Brussels. European countries are being urged to send more troops to fight the Taliban.